The third ballot issue to be covered is State Issue 3, commercial production and sale of marijuana for recreational and medicinal purposes. Issue 3 grants a monopoly for the commercial production and sale of marijuana for recreational and medicinal purposes. The proposed constitutional amendment proposed by initiative petition to add Section 12 of Article 15 of the Constitution of the State of Ohio. A majority yes vote is necessary for the amendment to pass. The proposed amendment would endow exclusive rights for commercial marijuana growth, cultivation, and extraction to self-designated landowners who own 10 predetermined parcels of land in Butler, Claremont, Franklin, Hamilton, Lickling, Lorain, Lucas, Delaware, Stark, and Summit counties. One additional grow facility may be allowed in 4 years if existing facilities cannot meet consumer demand. It will permit retail sale of recreational marijuana at approximately 1,100 locations statewide. Such retail establishments must have a state license that may be obtained only if the electors of the precinct where the store is located approve the use of the location for such purpose as a location option election. It will legalize the production of marijuana-infused products, including edible products, concentrates, sprays, ointments, and tinctures by marijuana product manufacturing facilities. It will allow each person 21 years of age or older to grow, cultivate, use, possess, and share up to 8 ounces of usable homegrown marijuana, plus 4 flowering marijuana plants if the person holds a valid state license. It would allow each person 21 years of age or older to purchase, possess, transport, use, and share up to 1 ounce of marijuana for recreational use. It would authorize the use of medical marijuana by any person, regardless of age, who has a certification for a debilitating medical condition. Prohibit marijuana establishments within 1,000 feet of a house of worship, public library, public or chartered elementary or secondary school, state licensed daycare center, or public playground. However, after a certain date, a new daycare, library, etc., cannot force a pre-existing marijuana establishment to relocate by opening a new location within 1,000 feet of the business. It will prohibit any local or state law, including zoning laws, from being applied to prohibit the development or operation of marijuana growth, cultivation, and extraction facilities, retail marijuana stores, and medical marijuana dispensaries, unless the area is zoned exclusively residential as of January 1, 2015, or as of the date of an application for a license is first filed for a marijuana establishment. It will create a special tax rate limited to 15% on gross revenue of each marijuana growth, cultivation, and extraction facility and marijuana plant manufacturing facility, and a special tax rate limited to 5% on gross revenue of each retail marijuana store. Revenues from the tax go to a municipal and township government fund, a Strong County Fund, and the Marijuana Control Commission Fund. It will create a marijuana incubator in Cuyahoga County to promote growth and development of the marijuana industry and locate marijuana testing facilities near colleges and universities in Athens, Cuyahoga, Lorain, Mahoning, Saratoga, and Wood counties at a minimum. It will limit the ability of legislature and local governments from regulating the manufacture, sales, distribution, and use of marijuana and marijuana products. It will create a new state government agency called the Marijuana Control Commission, with limited authority to regulate the industry, comprised of 7 Ohio residents appointed by the governor, including a physician, a law enforcement officer, an administrative law attorney, a patient advocate, a resident experienced in owning, developing, and managing and operating businesses, a resident with experience in legal marijuana industry, and a member of the public. Shall this amendment be approved? Elizabeth Brown will present the position in support of this proposed issue.
Thank you, Desiree. As you could tell by the lengthy description, this issue would legalize marijuana and then set up a very detailed regulatory scheme in order to control the distribution and the growth of marijuana. I think the biggest argument in favor of this particular issue of legalizing marijuana in Ohio is that the war on drugs has been deemed a real failure. It's much like the prohibition that we had against alcohol. In all the years that we have been trying to stamp out the use of marijuana, in fact, it's used now as much as it ever has been. And what we've created is a business market that is controlled by violent drug cartels that are selling and distributing the product. So we've got violent gangsters, controlling the market. We have individuals, particularly youth, who end up with criminal records that pretty much destroy their futures because they have been caught using marijuana. And we have huge taxpayer costs in law enforcement efforts to control this drug. The sense is that maybe it would be better to bring this market, which we've said that people want the product. Studies have shown that about 16% of the adults in the United States say that they have used marijuana within the last year, not when they were in college. Didn't try it when they were in college, but within the last year, it's about 16%. That this is a market that needs to be brought above board. It needs to be controlled more in a regulatory scheme. It needs to be taxed. Taxpayers, rather than paying to stamp it out, should be getting the benefits of taxing this product that's being used. The war on drugs also, there's a large argument that it has disproportionately hurt the African American community. Again, studies show that blacks and whites use marijuana and other drugs for that matter at about the same percentage rates, almost identical percentage rates. And yet overwhelmingly it is African Americans that are found end up with criminal records because of drug use or drug sales. This has been seen as a real disparity and something that is just another characteristic of a very much failed war on drugs policy. The medical use of marijuana is becoming, I've been amazed. I've spoken on the issue several times, not in a proponent fashion, but before several groups so far, and particularly elderly groups. And in each one of those groups, there is a large number of folks who can give examples of close family or friends who have found the use of marijuana to be very beneficial for medical issues. Apparently, this is more and more becoming common. Research is suggesting that there are a large number of conditions that the marijuana can be used for. There are examples of people with children who have found that the marijuana really helps their seizures, and yet they have to travel or move out of state in order to get it legally. And if they are found using it, in in Ohio, they end up being criminally prosecuted, trying to help their child over an illness. And as I mentioned before, even the medical marijuana, the legislature and the politicians don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So it is a highly regulated industry. It's an industry that needs to be brought above board. The regulatory scheme is modeled after the alcohol control commissions. okay? The Liquor Control Commission. It's the same idea. You have a commission, you have licenses given to the retail folks, and you have a limited number of grow sites so that you can control them, you can manage them, you can do product control, quality control on the sites. And when you think about it, who would you rather have the economic benefits, of this product? The business people who have invested in this initiative, or the current situation? Because if issue 3 does not pass, the economic benefit goes to those violent drug cartels. And they are the ones that are most interested in seeing that this initiative fail. Thank you. Questions? I'm sure there are a lot of questions. You're going to have to time this. Carolyn?
Would the sales tax still apply to these retail centers if you go and buy something, or is this 5% instead of it or in addition to?
I am not 100% sure on that, Carolyn. I do not know. I believe that it's in place of, but I cannot say for sure.
And the question?
Her question was that she was asking again about the taxes. She was concerned about in the initiative, in the ballot language, it says there will be a particular tax rate on the sale of the marijuana. And she wanted to know, was that in addition to a regular sales tax or otherwise? And I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is the revenue from sales of marijuana already appropriated to a certain area in the budget, or is it just general revenue that comes to the state?
It doesn't come to the state, it goes to the cities and counties. Actually, the state as a governmental organization does not have control of that. It was particularly written so that it goes to the cities and the counties at the local level.
That grows or has the retails it?
Both. Yes, Jerry?
How will this law, if it passes, affect the illegal sale to minors who are under 21 and the war on drugs, where I understand a lot of the businesses?
Right. I mean, it says it's legal only if you're 21 and above, unless there's a medical condition. So you would assume, and this is speculative, but you would assume that just like teenagers try to get beer, that they will try to get their hands, also on marijuana, and that there will continue to be at least somewhat of a black market, much less than there is now, but somewhat of, if you want to call it a black market or an illegal market, where younger people, teenagers, are trying to get the product. Much like the alcohol, where we say you can't do it when you're a certain age and it is, it's restricted. We all know that there's going to be some push against that, although there are controls in place. Yeah, Nancy?
When Desiree was reading the proposal, I thought I heard that the people get to vote on whether an establishment is put in their neighborhood. But then later on, I thought I heard that they cannot control where these establishments are by way of zoning.
Yeah.
So how do they control where these are?
The same way you do with the liquor stores, with liquor establishments that sell liquor, that there is a local, fairly small, I don't know the exact size of it, but the locality has to agree to have a liquor establishment there. It's controlled by the Liquor Control Commission. And so you would vote on whether or not it would be there. The zoning, I think the idea of the zoning, a city could not, the city of Cincinnati could not zone out and say, no marijuana establishments are allowed in our jurisdiction by zoning. I think that's more what the zoning is trying to control. You do have local control over the exact location of places, but you cannot bar them from your city, is my understanding. Haley, did you have one later? Huh? Go ahead, please.
How would this affect synthetic drugs? Like, you can make, or they sell like convenience stores and like gas stations, synthetic marijuana, like chemically altered, and they're legal, and then eventually they become illegal because they make a new one. Would that make this all legal if it didn't pass? Or all illegal?
Well, I'm not sure, exactly, on that product. I mean, I think the assumption is that once there is marketable, easy to obtain marijuana that's quality controlled, you know what you're getting, that it would basically kill the market for those types of products. I don't know from a legal point of view whether they would still be there or whether there would be any effect, but I think the assumption is there wouldn't be a market for them if you could go down the street and get the real product. Yes, Marjorie.
Do you happen to know in other states where marijuana has been legalized, say Colorado or California, if the growing is restricted to certain growers or if it's pretty open?
I don't know exactly the arrangements. California, I know, is pretty open. I know that none of them are as restrictive as the controls that were being put on in Ohio. So this one is considered to be the most restrictive, as my understanding. And I'm sorry the time is up for questions.
We're going to have Margaret Condit come back to present the position in opposition to the initiative to legalize marijuana.
Thank you very much. If you saw the table out front, I had a flyer out there, and I'm sure there are many copies left, so you can grab one on the way out, of what is Issue 3, and again, this is opposition to Issue 3. And on the back are all of the organizations that are opposing Issue 3, the language in Issue 3. So I'm going to give you a real quick summary of why I and a lot of other people are opposed to Issue 3. There are three main reasons, okay? And we've already talked about the monopoly problem. It creates a monopoly in our state constitution. There will be 10 farms in the state of Ohio that will be the only commercial growing sites for retail marijuana in the whole state. And the investors in those farms are going to become billionaires, moguls, and some of those investors don't even live in Ohio. And they get a really sweet tax rate as well, written right into the Constitution that we legislators can't change. So it's just, it's a sweet deal for them, but I think it's bad for Ohio, truly bad for Ohio. It creates over 1,100 retail stores across the state. If you put that in perspective, it's more than all the McDonald's and Starbucks in the state of Ohio. Can you imagine a bud store on every corner? It boggles my mind. It's 3 times more than the number of liquor stores in the state of Ohio. And there's no ability for local zoning laws to limit where they're sited, other than the 1,000 feet from a school or a park. And I walk 10,000 feet a day. So 1,000 feet's not that far. And the third reason that that I'm opposed to Issue 3 is that it allows edibles, and not just joints, but edibles. These are brownies, cookies, gummy bears, lollipops, with no regulation on the amount of active ingredient, THC, in the product. None. It could be 0%, it could be, 5%, it could be God knows what. There's no regulation on the kind of packaging. So you could have packaging that's got bright colors and attractive to kids. I worked in the food division at Procter & Gamble. My goodness, the FDA regulated our packaging. You don't want to just package something and kids think it's a real lollipop, and it's not. And in fact, in Colorado, they have the Poison Control Center has had an increase in marijuana calls. It's increased 72% just in 1 year. The youth in Colorado are using marijuana at a rate 56% higher than the national average. So I think that this whole edibles and attracting children is a really bad idea, and it's bad for Ohio. Now, the TV ads that I've watched are going to claim that legalization is needed and that laws are outdated. But in fact, marijuana has already been decriminalized in the state of Ohio. That's different than legalized, but it's basically a minor misdemeanor at best. And most of the judges don't even worry about that. What they worry about is that marijuana is a gateway drug to more serious drugs. People don't get thrown in jail for smoking marijuana. They get thrown in jail for armed robbery to buy drugs. I do jail ministry. I see these ladies in jail every week. It's not because they smoked a joint or had a little bit on them. It's because, well, they said they shoplift, but when they get 3 years, you know there was a gun involved, okay? So that's armed robbery. That's why people go to jail. The TV ads also claim that medical marijuana is needed for pediatric epilepsy. And that family on TV, they're from Liberty Township. They moved to Colorado and said they can't come back. Yes, they can. The FDA is already conducting clinical trials at universities and hospitals in Ohio. If they're not in that clinical trial, they can get compassionate care and allowed to get the product. It's called expanded access through the FDA, and their doctor just has to apply to the FDA. So I called the FDA about this and had a long conversation because I wanted to get all my facts straight. So I mentioned that there are a number of groups that are opposed to Issue 3, and they're listed on the back, and the list grows every day. So if you go to this website, noissue3.com, you can look at, and I've got 15 seconds. Newspapers, chambers of commerce, labor groups, they don't want their workers being high on drugs. County commissioner, addiction and mental health boards, Truckers Association, and the League of Women Voters, and I have to stop. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes, sir.
In those states that have legalized marijuana, has the price gone up or down?
Oh, that's a great question. The question is, for those states that have legalized marijuana, has the price gone up or down? And I don't know the answer to that because, I haven't been there or bought any, but I do have friends in Colorado and Washington, so I'll have to do a little research. Yes, ma'am. In the back. Yes, hi. I'm fine. I recognize you.
First of all, I know that the black market still exists, but one of the things that you didn't bring up, which is a problem, is that everything is cash. The banks will not take any money from marijuana profits.
Okay.
So anybody who's selling in the stores and everybody else can only take cash, and they have to keep it in a vault, get extra security or whatever. And so when we decide how much taxes they are going to pay, how do we figure out? Because we don't know how much gas they really brought in. We have to hope that they're really honest about it, but, it's pretty easy to hide cat. So I think that is one of the larger problems that I see, is whole, nothing but cash transactions.
Yeah, so the issue is about cash transactions for these businesses. And as far as the taxes go, somebody asked the question whether it would be, subject to an Ohio sales tax, and that's also a good question. I need to find out. What's written in the issue is a 15% commercial tax rate for businesses, and that's, really pretty low, I think. So I'll have to find out about the other. But yeah, you do worry about the black market and the cash transactions, and even that which is sold in Colorado is not staying within the boundaries of Colorado. I think that if medical marijuana were going to be approved, it should be approved by the FDA in all 50 states, and that the study should be done for safety and efficacy, not one state at a time, so that we can black market it across state lines. Yes, ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
Will the Marijuana Control Board have the ability to regulate packaging and THC levels, and would it be in their best interest to regulate such things?
It would be in their best interest, but the way the issue is written, there is limited control. So we have a casino control commission now, very limited. They basically do ads talking about, gee, gambling is an addiction, be careful. They make sure that the casinos are supposed to be paying the taxes, that they pay the taxes they're supposed to, which is hard. Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's any requirement for the surplus that the farmers they're gonna have? Surplus?
Surplus? Of the surplus?
For that? What they're gonna do with that?
Oh, the surplus of marijuana?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm assuming it would all be sold. I'm not sure about the shelf stability of old joints. Yeah, there's a whole industry out there for what to do with shelf stability. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to your question. Yes, ma'am?
One of the things that I thought of, because an individual can only grow 4 plants.
Okay.
So a lot of people right now are already growing a lot more than 4 plants, so that black market still will exist because those people are not gonna stop selling.
Right, yeah.
Growing. So,
Yeah, the black market will probably still exist because, yeah, if you're not one of those 10 farms and you're growing more than 4 plants now, yeah, you're not going to throw the others away. Yes, ma'am.
I'll say the other thing to probably consider, like you guys talked about the price too, I don't know if in the other places they have the monopoly. So when you think about the price, there's probably a lot of competition, so there's drawing down the price in those other areas where if you have a monopoly, the price will probably remain the same or just keep increasing if it's a small number of people.
Right. Yeah, you're right. When you have an open market, good competition, the price generally comes down. And there was a lady right behind you. Yes, ma'am.
And my question is, you're talking about like, oh, there's gonna be an influx, that there's gonna be like more hot
Yeah,
things and Starbucks.
1,159
But
retail.
was that really feasible, because not everyone's gonna be using, and you're gonna have the same restrictions on, you can still get arrested for driving while intoxicated, still do it. And it's just like alcohol, it's like workers say, oh, they're afraid, they don't want their employees to buy. But aren't they have still the same restrictions, it's gonna be like alcohol. You're not gonna come in drunk, and if you come in high, they still have the same, they can fire you and do all that.
That's what the businesses are concerned about. If somebody's on medical marijuana,
Well, medical, if it's,
then
medical's
they
a
have to
little
let
different
them come to
story
work.
than just and we're talking about 2 different subjects.
Okay, yeah,
Recreational versus that, and saying, oh, everyone's gonna go into work high.
yeah,
And, if they don't, are medically reasoned to.
yeah. So it's good to look at what's happening in Colorado. Oh, and I got a stop sign. But read the report from Colorado about traffic incidents. I'll leave it at that.